Okay, there's one thing about when you have a presentation right after a break, there's always people kind of straggling in, and I like to play off, I like to have fun. So, well, let's have some fun. Okay, so, when somebody comes in the room, I'm going to ask a really absurd question. Okay, but it really requires that everybody in the room raise their hand. Okay, so when I ask a really absurd question, just go ahead and raise your hand, and then we'll see the reaction when they come in. So, okay, and this is kind of how I usually operate. It's just, keep it light, have fun. Otherwise, it's dull and boring. Oh, okay, there we go. So I was actually hired at Intel in 1995 to do IMTC testing. That was the purpose of me being hired at Intel. I am not necessarily a quote-unquote volunteer amateur. I am a professional IMTC. I was at the time anyway. So actually part of my probation was writing up the test plans for T120 and submitting that into the IMTC for use and approval and stuff. So it's still up on the FTP site. I chaired initially the T120 data conferencing group, then went into when NetMeeting was launched and kind of took over. There wasn't Intel didn't have a product in T120 after NetMeeting, so I went into 324, and we did have ProShare. We had video phones, so we had 324 product, and so I chaired that group. And then when Jim Toga from Intel moved out, I went into 323, and then we kind of organized later on. We organized our activity groups into working groups, and I chaired the network infrastructure group, which included mobility and a few other things. There were a lot of things that were going on. I just so I put other because kind of the catch-all, right? So. I took 40 interop events over a 7-year period, or 6-year period, I guess, starting in '96. So that was a lot of fun. It was there's people that you meet, and every event that you go to, there's like the same group of people, right? It's a relatively small industry. Right? The experts in the area are all involved, and so you go to these events and you see the same group of engineers, and you know who they are, and there was always the same name, but the company name might change, as they move around and do different things. And as a result of all that work with the interop and stuff, and it was an honor to be elected onto the board of directors and executive VP because of that work. So that was a nice part there. Okay, so I'm going to talk. I'll kind of give some description of the past, look at where we're at today, and then what I want to really conclude with is what does it take? What is it going to take for IMTC to be successful based on some of the things that we did in the past? So back in '93, you have to think. Deepak kind of gave a glimpse of this too. Was that the state of technology back then was that broadband was 1.5 megabits per second through ISDN and T1. Consumer was 14.4 V32-bit modems, right? The Intel processor at that time, the Pentium, was 66 megahertz versus the 3.9 gigahertz that we have today. So that's 59 times greater. The 0.8 micron versus today's 22 nanometer. Today is 36 times smaller than back then, and we had 3.1 million transistors on a processor versus the 1.4 billion transistors that we have today, which is a 452 times improvement, as many more, in a smaller package, right? So 320, HSOT 320 was the only standard. Okay, T120 was just being talked about in the standards groups, and in order for any of this to work at all, given the limitations of the PC, DSPs were required. You had to have special add-in cards in a PC for that to even work, or you had to have some very high-end type of computing device. But it wasn't going to happen on the host PC. Just wasn't enough horsepower there. Oh, nobody's come in yet. I'm waiting. Okay, so technology was barely able to actually support the conferencing at the time. There was only one published standard, so therefore there was several proprietary implementations from different companies at the time. I think Picture had theirs, and Intel, we had ours, and a lot of these proprietary types of implementations were scattered around, and you had to have that DSP hardware to make it all work. So that's kind of where it was. So in 94, with the merger of CATS and MECO that Deepak talked about, was a formation of IMTC. I do have to give you credit, though. And this is a 20-year anniversary for IMTC, but really that's not till next year. And the merger of PCWG with 90. So we can extend this 20-year celebration out for a couple more. That's pretty good. I like the way you think there. So with the merger of PCWG, one of the things that we did in PCWG was to the foundation, the work that was doing, it was interoperability testing. Intel had the clients, we had implementations, but we needed other network types of companies to interoperate with to make it all work. MCUs and all these other types of devices that Intel did not have. So interoperability was a very key factor in enabling video conferencing for that. So that's why when PCWG was merged into IMTC, then the interop started in here. So IMTC was there were a number of different industry groups, CATS and MECO and PCWG, and IMTC really consolidated chaos, right? Because you had all these different things. And there was a lot of proprietary implementations, so a lot of consolidation of chaos into, now we're just chaos in the room, right, instead of all over. And then the interoperability with PCWG coming into IMTC. So in October 95, we established the T120 activity group, and it was March of 96 that we had the first event. It was Event 120, and part of that, Intel and Microsoft were the sponsors, okay, and part of that was establishing the rules of engagement. Okay, now this was really key because we had to make sure that there was a lot of questions about how we were actually going to do this, so whether companies were going to participate or not, and so we had to make the rules very clear. We didn't want to require anybody to give up their IP in order to participate. We didn't want this to be a marketing event. We didn't want we wanted the engineers in the room to work out their issues, right? And come together and talk about whatever they need to do to get things working. And we couldn't do that if marketing or customers or observers were in the room. So we said none of that. And so we ended up having 25 companies participate. And then at the end of the event, we had a large, I'll talk about this in a minute here, but we had a large multi-point conference with as many endpoints that we could. So it was kind of these, right from the beginning, we kind of had whoever can participate kind of thing, because everything else was very scheduled, right? We had to, everybody was scheduled. You test with them, and you're going to test this protocol, at this T123 layer, and you're going to test. Okay, now you, and you're going to test all the way up to the MCC, and so we had all these different tests individually. But at the end, it was kind of a free for all. We said, okay, anybody who can participate in this, go ahead and connect in. So it's really important that as an industry that we come together and know each other really well. So let's find out a little bit about each other here. Who in the room, raise your hand, has ever killed a loved one or a colleague for not doing what they said? Just, let's find out. Yeah? Okay. So you're not. Are you a little concerned about that? That you did. Gentleman just came in the room. He didn't raise his hand, so you might want to keep your back to the back of the room because everybody around there killed somebody. So just be. Okay. So some pictures of the event 120. I was talking about that. That's right. So in order, a lot of things that we had to do to get that running were, registration, which was not web-based. We had email only at the time, right, to get things going. We had to get the hotels arranged. We had to get catering, shipping, and receiving of these huge boxes like this, like these large monitors. We had, the network. And actually, let's stop this for a second because I saw this picture and I was like, what is Deepak doing? It's like, we have these guys talking about, T120 protocol, PDUs, and I can just see Deepak going, like, well, it's right there. It's the second byte. That should be an alerting, not a disconnect, obviously. Okay, thanks. So, ISDNs, we had to bring in some PRIs and set up some IP networks, some phones to everybody in the room. That was the raising of the hands of everybody who was participating in the last multi-point conference at the end. We had to do the test plans. And of course, there was some dinner event with Neil in his usual drinking mode there. We tracked results at a very close detail level too. We like I said, we scheduled everybody, and we knew exactly who was testing with whom, and what level they were testing, what was successful, what wasn't. And as an IMTC organization, we said that none of those individual test results would be released to anybody. But what we did was we generalized it. We knew how many companies. So what we did release in the press was how many companies participated at what levels, and we could show progression. The idea was to show progression of meeting the standards over a period of time, and that kind of signals our customers, when the products are ready to be bought, right? So that when many companies are able to interoperate at the application levels, and they kind of get an idea of when it's time to buy. So a lot of the long-term success of IMTC's interoperability was based on that first event, getting the rules of engagements established, getting buy-in from all the companies, the participants, the members of IMTC, and dedicated resources to making that happen. It's the same with this event. It's the same with every event. You need to have dedicated people to step up, especially sponsors, to make those things happen. And the sponsors being, at that time, at the first one, it was Intel and Microsoft, really signaled to the industry that we were coming together, and this was the way to go. T120 now was chosen, even though H320 was the standard. It was the one standard that was approved, and it had been already adopted and was out there. T120 was used at this event because it wasn't a standard yet, right? There were no products in the market to interoperate with. So, you know, the takeaway here is, you know, as these standards are released and products are released to the standards, interoperability at the events become less valuable. You're most valuable before when you have a new standard or a change standard, right? I think I've got that. No, I don't. I think I've got it on the next slide actually. So you know, new and change standards are the things we want to focus on at the events, because otherwise, you know, companies can just buy their off-the-shelf stuff, you know, interoperate in their QA labs, and you don't need to go to a face-to-face event to do that. Okay, so after Event 120, then we started having many. You know, there was 323 that was also being ratified at the ITU, 324, and all these events started going. Now, Jim Toga from Intel, he was at Intel at the time, was the editor of 323, and he used IMTC. Now, it's easy to think about IMTC interoperability testing as something that happens after the standard, right? You go to the standards, and here the standards come out, and they say, okay, and then we take that and we make our products, we interoperate, and then we release our products. It's not quite the real good. The better model is that, as Deepak described earlier, is working together, right? You want IMTC to be involved in setting the standard, right? The people in this room, in these companies in this room, to be involved in setting the standard and testing at the same time, and that's what Jim did. It was a great model, right? So he would write, he would write parts of the spec and the profile in the spec, and then we'd get together in small groups and try them out, right? And then he'd go back and he'd write some more and have the next event. And so these were like once a month he held an interop event. So very fast, very small groups. Whoever was ready was invited. There was no exclusion. It was just whoever was ready, and he wasn't trying to go for 20, 30 companies. He's just whoever's ready, come on, and we'll try it out. So that worked really well. 324, that was also another one, and I think the innovation there was that we discovered after a period of time that we could just, instead of setting up a phone network in the room and calling across the room, we could actually call across the country or around the world. So we actually did several virtual events to reduce travel costs and stuff, and that worked. We still needed face-to-faces, but we didn't have to have every event. Didn't have to be a face-to-face. So we did learn to scale. From Event 120 was a large event, but they didn't have to all be large, and they didn't all have to be face-to-face. So we just tried to keep the cost down for the memberships. So SuperOp. Now, having interoperability within a standard is all well and good, but it didn't take long actually to start thinking at the next step, right? What are we going to do now? And really, interworking was the key phrase there. Elliot Gould was at the fall forum in '96 and asked me after my presentation, asked me, so I hear about all these interoperability events, and that's all well and good, but when are you going to get them all working together? And we said, well, we did have that as a board topic, so we talked about that. It was even more important then after he asked the question. So these types of interactions at the forums are very important. So we got interworking 323 to 320, and it's just the different types of interworking, of different standards coming together. So we created SuperOp. Deutsche Telekom and Video Server were the sponsors in May of 97, and we did that in Berlin. What we did was set up, just like Event 120, you had to have a large network infrastructure of all the different types of networks. Only it was a lot bigger. There was a lot more standards, there were a lot more people, there were a lot more endpoints. And we conducted the interoperability testing first to get all the bugs worked out and knowing who was working with who in terms of protocols and what levels, what issues that they had to resolve. And then we took a sign-up sheet and said, tell us your endpoint or tell us your type of equipment, whether it's an endpoint, MCU, gateway, gatekeeper, whatever it is, and let's schedule it out. So we kind of scheduled this on the fly based on the outcome of the testing. Am I really running behind? Okay, and then we created a super connection at the very end of the super op and got everybody working. So that was a huge success. There were a lot of. I've got a diagram. Am I penalized? Oh, there it goes. See, this, am I penalized on time because it's not clicking as fast? So there's you'll see here that which one of these? Okay, each one of these boxes is an MCU, and these boxes are MCUs. This is all 320 up here, or 323, and this is 320 down here. We had, and this is from 2000, so I didn't have the diagram from 97, but this is what we did starting in 97, this type of thing. And then the SIP. So we have endpoints, 323 endpoints up here, 320 endpoints down here, and all these gatekeepers for the 323. And then so we assigned everybody to connect to the different MCUs. And same down here, we had the endpoints connect to the MCUs first, and then cascade interconnect the MCUs together, and then once we had two different conferences going, 320, we had a 320 and a 323 conference that were separated. Then we gatewayed them, and then we had the gateways bring up both of them together. So we had. And bring them together. So everybody, So this is the type of event that or type of connection that you can't. So even when you have standard protocol products in the market, and you can buy those and put them in your QA lab, you can't. That's a tough one to recreate in your QA lab. So super connection actually provides something that you can't do in your labs, even with released product out there. So it's a stress type of testing and allows you to mature the market faster and get those products out there. Okay, so when we look at, so that was the past. When we look at where we're at today, we have really established. There's Yesfan. Is on there, should be on there. He's not on there, but he should be on there. As part of it, we have a real stable. We have people that have been in IMTC for a long time, and then you combine that with all the companies that we have in IMTC, all these market leaders, and then these activity groups that are very impactful to the products. IMS, SIP parity, PSS WebRTC is a good one. That's I hope that takes off. That looks like a real good opportunity there. I think we have all the right ingredients. It's taking the learnings from the past and applying those. And part of that. This isn't. Oh, okay. This is a build. Widespread adoption of conferencing products does depend on the standards. That's sort of the basis of IMTC. So what we need to do is align these activity groups close to what the standards bodies are doing. Like I described with Jim Toga and 323 is that interaction between testing and writing the standards. Adopt all the standards. Now initially SIP was a difficult one because most of the members were in IMTC were ITU based. So adopting IETF ETSI, and all standards protocols need to be adopted. It's for the betterment. It's for the improving the whole industry to do that. And there it is. Continue the super op and super connections. Those are vital to those bring value. Those bring value to the membership. They bring value to the market. And finally, it takes a village. It takes real active members to make this happen. So if we don't have the participation and the activity is not really active, then things are not going to move along. So it does require that. It's been a real pleasure both being in IMTC for many years and actually coming back. It's good to see faces. I really enjoyed it. I've had this is probably the highlights of my career is being in IMTC and meeting all the people. So I really appreciate it. So happy anniversary.